Hey, greetings everyone. My name is Tony Holowitz, and I want to thank you for being here for this class. In this class, we're going to talk about Microsoft Word Intermediate. And just something that I want to throw out there to everyone that is in this class is when I teach these intermediate classes, what intermediate means to me is all the things that we really don't know that much about. So it could be anything. Now, the way you use Word versus the way I use Word could be completely different. I look at Word as a blank slate, a blank piece of paper, and we can do whatever we want with it. You could write a book, you could write a proposal, you could write a document, you could put some artwork in here. You can do a lot of different things with it. So in this class, when I teach intermediate classes, they're always harder for me because I don't know what you know. So I might be touching some things you know already. I apologize for that in advance. However, I'm going to focus my attention on doing things that I have experienced as useful things to know as an average everyday Microsoft Word user. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and I'm going to click on File, and I'm going to click on Blank Document to give me a brand new blank document. And if you don't know this, down below, here's the Word icon, and I have my two documents over here. So I can see either one of them and select the one I want to use. I'm going to use document number 2. Now, another thing I'll draw your attention to that you might or might not have noticed is that I have a huge blinking cursor going on over here on the left-hand side of the screen. And the reason this looks a little off is because down on the bottom right, there is a zoom feature down here on the right, and I'm at 276%. I'm going to click just in the middle to take it back to 100%, and that looks a little bit normal, more normal, I should say. So now we've brought it down to a smaller size, but because I want you to see it a little bit, I'm going to come back down to the zoom feature. I'm going to hit plus a few times and just make this a little bit bigger so that when I type something, you can see it a little bit easier. Now, keep in mind, things don't print out this way, but this is what you can see on the screen. Okay, so now that I have this, I want to talk to you just about what I think is a big thing in Microsoft Word, and that is something called tables. Tables are a way of thinking in my mind. So I remember the first time anyone ever suggested tables to me, it didn't make sense, and I had to put it in context. So think of tables this way. Try to imagine for a moment that you're about to create a calendar. And you say to yourself, you know what, I got to create a calendar. So let me think this through a little bit. Well, let's think about just a calendar for a given month. When you're working with a calendar, you know there's at least 28 days. Some months have 30, some have 31. But I'm going to focus on just 28 days to simplify this. So I have 7 days. I have 4 weeks of 7 days. Also, I might want to list or put in what month I'm in. So if you think of it this way, you think of it as columns and rows. So I want one row for the month, which is October. I want another row for the days of the week, Monday through Sunday. And then I want my 28 days, 1 to 7, 8 to 14, and so on. So I need 4 more rows. So if I want to create a calendar, what I'd be thinking about is, okay, how can I do that in the easiest way possible? And that's where, in my opinion, tables come into play, and tables are something I'd use. So I'm going to come up top and I'm going to click on Insert. And when I come here, you'll notice right here it says Table. I'm going to click on this, and this box drops down. And what I've done is I've chosen 1 row, 2 rows. And I'm going to go down because I had said I want 6 rows. Oop, missed it a little bit. So there's 6 rows, but now I need 7 days. So I'm going to go over to the right. So now we're going to insert a table here, 7 by 6. And I'm going to click, and now I've got a table. And what a table looks like is really just something that you would see in Microsoft Excel. So in this first cell, I'm going to type in October. And as I type in October, you'll notice it just sort of uses the standard font. If I want to go to the next cell, I can hit the Tab key, and I can go through all the cells. I can use the up and down arrow keys. I could also use my mouse, but I just find sometimes I want to use the keyboard shortcuts. So as I'm describing this, I'm going to go through and I'm going to put in the days of the week. I'm just going to put these in real quick. And now all of a sudden, this doesn't really look like a calendar right now, but as we get into this a little bit, you'll see that it will start to look like it a little bit more and more. So what I'm going to do is next, I've got my month, I got my days, but here is day 1, down here is day 28. I'm not going to fill in everything, but this doesn't really look like a calendar based on what I'm used to. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to come down to the very bottom, or actually, you know what? Let me take that back. I'm just going to put my pointer on any one of the lines of the cell. And when I do that, it can be faint, but I'm getting a two-headed line with arrows up and down. I'm going to click and hold and I'm going to drag down, and I'm making this a little bit wider, okay, or longer, however you want to look at it. I'm going to do the same for the second and the third. So now all of a sudden, this is starting to look just a little bit more like a calendar. Now, because it's gone off the page, I'm going to go zoom in a little bit, or out, I should say. Sometimes I get those backwards. And now it's looking a little bit more like a calendar. So let's say I want to make all these 4 rows equal in size. In other words, I want to make the rows even. The way you select a row is you come over to the left and click and hold and drag up. And now I've selected all those rows. I'm going to, now that I'm back here, right click after having released the mouse button, and I'm going to go distribute rows evenly. And now it made it even. So now I have a calendar, so to speak. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to go back and double what I just did by making the rows even. And now that looks like a calendar a little bit more. Next, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to select all this text and I'm going to center it. So I'm going to go back to the Home tab and I'm going to center all this text right here. I'm also going to make it bold and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just to make it pop a little bit more. Now, when I work in a row like I just did, I selected all this text and I changed it, but I could also just go into one cell and change just that. You'll notice up here in October, it's a little tight, so I'm going to drag this down a little bit. But I'm also going to click in this cell and I'm going to drag over to the right. And this time I'm going to right click and I'm going to go merge cells. I'm going to make it one big cell. Now October is sort of sitting up there, sort of lost over to the left. I'm going to center it. I'm going to make it bigger so it really pops. And now it's in the middle of this cell. So you can merge cells, you can split cells, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So the great thing about a table, in my opinion, is that it's the way you envision things going forward. So let's say, for example, I said to you, hey, I need you to do a price list. Well, that price list is something that if you wanted to do that price list and you're thinking in your mind, how's this going to play out? What's it going to look like? This price list is something that you can then envision in your mind in a table. So maybe you have columns, you have rows, you have sections, whatever it might be, you sort of play it out in a table. But let's say in this particular example of using a calendar, let's say there was actually 6 weeks in a month and we needed to add a couple more rows. Well, I'm going to go down to the bottom 2 rows. I'm going to click to the left of this row, drag down. And now that I'm here, I'm going to right click, which will bring up this box and go insert. And I'm going to go insert below. And now it went off the screen because it's too big. Because I had selected 2 rows, when I clicked insert, it added 2 rows. So if I had only selected 1, it would have added 1. If I had selected 4, it would have selected 4. Now in this case, I'm going to go up and I'm going to click on undo to undo what I just did. Remember I said how you can split cells and merge cells? Well, I can select cells in my table and I've selected these 6 cells and I'm going to right click and I'm going to go merge cells. So now I've made one big cell. Next, if I wanted to, I could put a table within this cell. So I'm going to go up and click on insert. I'm going to go table. then I'm going to make another little table right inside here. So I can have a table within a cell, which is really a table within a table. And now all that information is right there. So I'm going to go back a couple of steps and undo some of the steps I just did. And the reason for that is that up here, you'll notice that there's something called table design and table layout. If I put my pointer over any of these items, now I can add a design based on these templated designs. So if none of these are interesting to you, I can click on this little down arrow right here and get more designs. So I can make this a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. Sometimes I like to make it smaller so I can see the table. But at this point, I can put some kind of other design on this. So I'm just going to click on this. And now I've got a completely different design or look and a feel. So what I've done here is by using tables, I have created a calendar. But again, as I mentioned, you can work backwards and think, okay, how do I design the thing I've been tasked with, like a price list? And in your mind, if you think about tables and you have projects coming up, all of a sudden what my experience has been is that you start seeing things in tables. You look at things and how they'd be laid out, and you see it as columns and rows. And I think that can be very effective when working with tables, some structured layout that you need to work with. Okay, so let's talk about another aspect of this. Let's say that now I want to put something up top here. Now, one of the things that I've always found interesting with Word is when you're working with it, you're sort of restricted to the area where you can type things. So because of that, the next thing I want to teach you about is something called the text box. So I went up here and I clicked on Insert. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and it's, I just got to click out of this. Bear with me a second. There we go. So up here, I'm on Insert. And way over here on the right-hand side is something called the text box. And I'm going to click on that. And when I do that, I have some options. But the one I always choose is Draw Text Box down at the bottom. And when I do that, I can come up here and just draw a box. Now, I'm just going to type my name in here to illustrate a point. You can come in and modify this. You can change the font, the style, the look, the feel, everything about it, much like I did with the table. But the main point that I want to make about a text box is this. When I put my pointer on any of the sides, on the lines, I get a four-headed arrow. And when I get that arrow, I can click on it and drag this anywhere I want it to be. So this is what I really like about a text box. It's free floating and I can move it where I need it. So between a table and a text box, maybe I forgot to put in the table price list October 2024, I can use a text box to do that. So text boxes are something I like to work with because it's free floating and that is the primary reason I work with it. Another thing I want to draw to your attention is this. Remember I said to you that up top there was two tabs right up here that were related to the table design? Well, this leads to something else I want to talk to you about. It's called contextual tabs. Now, this is something you've been working with that you might or might not know anything about. But what contextual tabs are tabs that only show up as they are needed. So remember how I was showing you to add a different color or style to this calendar, and I chose the orange? Well, if I want to do that again, my natural inclination would be to go up top on the ribbon and look for those tabs, but I don't see them. They're gone. So what do? It's like, did I imagine that or am I doing something wrong? And this is actually a very easy fix if you just remember this one thing. Whatever it is you want to work on, whether it be the table or the text box, simply click on it. And you'll notice that up top now, these two tabs are back. Okay, the table design and the table layout tab. So when you're working with this, when you're working with this, if those tabs that you're expecting are disappeared, just click on the item you want to work on. I'm going to click away from the table for a moment by clicking below it, and you'll notice they disappear. They're not there. Simply click in the table and they're back. Notice that when I click in the text box, there's a new tab that showed up. It's shape format. Okay. If I click away from it, it's gone. So don't think, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. I know I just saw it there. It's contextual. It will be there when you click on something because the software is anticipating you'll need it at that point. So contextual tabs, that's in all the Microsoft Office products, not just Microsoft Word. So frankly, you're not losing your mind. It's there. Okay, let me move on to something else. I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to create a new blank document. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in some text here. Let me just type this in. And again, I'm going to make this bigger so you can see it a little bit easier. And I'm just going to type some text. I'm going to put a period. I'm going to select this text. I'm going to go Control-C on my keyboard to copy it. And then I'm going to come here. I'm going to go forward a couple spaces. And I'm just going to keep pasting this in. I just want to get some text on the screen. Okay, why am I doing this? Let's say for some reason you decided that you wanted certain text to jump out at you. For example, you wanted to make something bold and red. So I'm going to select right here, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to click on bold, and I'm going to click on red. So now I have some type that is red and bold. But let's say I want to do that same style in other places in my document. Let's say I want to do it right here. Yes, I could go up and click on red and bold. I could do that. But that can be a few steps. So what I want to show you next is I'm going to select just a couple letters from the word type. I can get here two different ways. I'm going to go up here on the ribbon and I'm going to click on Format Painter. And when you go up there, and actually I didn't click, I just hovered over it. When I get here, if I click on that, it's copying this type style. So now I can go down and select some text with my mouse and apply it here. But when I click just once on the Format Painter, I can only apply it one time. Let me click Undo to undo what I just did. And next, I'm going to go back to this. I'm just going to grab, you can grab all four letters, but you only need one. And this time, instead of clicking once on the Format Painter, I'm going to click twice. So now I can come in and I can go through my document and apply this in different spots. So the reason I like to show people this is if you've ever created anything in a document and you want to make certain things pop, instead of having to go through your whole document and going through all these steps, use the Format Painter to go through and add some pop to your document. If you have a 20-page document, this little tool will make it easier to do that. Okay. So something that I just find really easy to work with, and it's a great tool when you start really getting into doing things in a document like that. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about is find and replace. Now, I'm used to using certain keyboard shortcuts. They're just things I've learned. So I always know keyboard shortcut to find something is Control F as in Frank. So that's what I just did. But I'm going to close this, and I want to draw your attention over here. Let's see, and I always have to look for it. But see over here on the right on the tab, it says replace. I'm going to click on replace. And now it's going to say, what do I want to replace? Well, I want to replace the word some with Tony. Now, let me put in my proper name, Anthony. So what I can do is at this point, I can replace just one at a time, or I can replace all. And I'm going to click on replace all. And now I've replaced all those items. Or if I just want to find, I didn't even have to do that. I could just do this and go in and replace some of that text. So now I'm just going to close this because I've already replaced the text. Next thing I'm going to do is I want to talk to you about an option that you have when working in Microsoft Word. I'm going to do Control A to take all this information out. I'm going to press Delete. And at this point, I'm going to go up on the ribbon and I'm going to click on dictate. And when I click on dictate, I can now talk, and things that I'm talking about will be put right into my document. Now I can add punctuation, period, go on to a new sentence and ask a new question if I want to, period. I can also put in an exclamation point, exclamation point. And again, some of these things I have to practice and be aware of, but this is another thing you can do. Where I find this even more compelling, frankly, is in Microsoft Outlook. But there's a dictation option, and because I'm talking over a headset with a mic, it's allowing me to dictate. Let me make this a little bit smaller so you can see it, and it looks a little clearer. So my experience has been with the dictation, I'm going to turn this off, is that it is fair. Now, in the past, I've used a dictation tool called Dragon, Naturally Speaking. I think it was one of the first ones. But I think it's worth to go in and explore this and really work with it to see what it does for you. Okay. So a little while ago, when we were talking about calendars, one of the things that I wanted to suggest to you is don't reinvent the wheel. And what I mean by that is this. When you're working in Word and you're saying to yourself, yeah, I want to go in and create a calendar, instead of doing that, ask yourself this question. And again, not just about Word, but Word, Excel, PowerPoint, anything you're working with. Is there an easier way? And the reason I say that is this. I'm going to go up and click on File, and I'm going to go down to New. And when I click on New, in here is different kinds of templates. Okay, there's informational templates you can go in and review. But let's say I want to do a calendar. Well, I can just type in calendar here in the search box. I can start a search. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to bring up all kinds of different calendars that I can work with. So instead of me having to create a calendar, I can just go in and do my own calendar. Now, here's a calendar that's very similar to what we had started to design. But I'm going to go down and do a little bit more of an interesting calendar. Let me take this one right here, a photo calendar. When I click on it, it gives me a little bit of a preview. But if I click on create, it's going to pop up on my screen. Now, what I can do is go in and edit this. I can move this photo out, put another one in, but I can also work with setting these to work for me. So what I'm getting at is if you think you're going to do things, see first if there's an easier way to do that. And in my estimation, my prediction is normally there is. So just a little idea, something to think about. While I'm here, I'm going to backtrack for just a minute and suggest something to you to do on your time because there's too much here for me to go through. But having said that, up here on our ribbon, we have all kinds of different options. And right now I'm on the Home tab. If you really want to sort of explore Microsoft Word or any of the Microsoft products, what I urge you to do is just go through the different tab options up top and click on them and just observe some of the things you can do. And ask yourself the question, how does that work? I'm going to go back to File and I'm going to create a blank document. And I'm going to go back to the Insert option. One of the things that I think can be very interesting is I don't get all that excited about pictures, shapes, icons, 3D. Some of the stuff I just could care less about. But what I do find interesting is online videos. And I'm going to click on this. You can literally take a video and insert it inside your document. What you would have to do is beforehand, go find the video you want to put in here and take a copy of the URL that you could paste right in here. So you can do YouTube, SlideShare, Vimeo, Stream, and TED. So there's different options here. But you can put a video right inside your document, which I always have found interesting. I'm going to close that. When you go back up to Draw, there's some options here. I got to be honest, I rarely, if ever, use this. The design, you can add different designs to a document. Because I don't have any content in here, it's sort of hard to show you this. But you can add a different design to make it look a little bit fancier if you wanted to. Layout, You can choose some of the layout, what the orientation is, the margins, the size, the columns. Again, some of this I'm just pointing out so you can decide how this might impact the way you work. Here, references, table of contents. There's certain things here. I got to be honest, I never use any of this. My wife, who is a writer, would use more of this information than I would. It just is not applicable to me. Let's go look at mailings. So let's say you want to write a letter and do a mail merge to some other. Um, Let me restate that. Let's say you wrote a letter and you wanted to do a mail merge so you could send it to people. You can start a mail merge, select the recipients. You can do labels, envelopes, all kinds of things. Now, I'm biased here. Professionally, I teach a software program called ACT CRM. And ACT is a tool that you can use to keep all your contacts in it and do certain things in there. I would never use this tool to create that process. I would use something else, knowing that having my data organized, my contacts organized, is a big step in working with this. I'm going to go back up to review and show you a couple of the other things you can do. You can read something aloud. You can do all kinds of little things. So go in and look at this. The view, just how you view it side by side, web layout, read mode. Play around with this. Go look at what this stuff can do for you. Okay, I'm going to go back to the Home tab, and I want to draw your attention over here onto the right-hand side to the right of the Editor option. Something called add-ins, and I'm going to click on that. Add-ins are tools, most of them, many of them are free, that you can use to do more with Microsoft Word. There's sort of little tools you can add. And as you scroll down, and I'm not going to get into these specific items, all I want to point out to you is that there's a lot of options in here for different things. Now, I don't know how to rate these. I just don't know enough about the way people would use these or why they'd use them. But my experience has been that if you have a need, there's a chance that there might be some kind of tool out there to help you with it. Now, I say that knowing the following. The following is this. When you are working these days, one of the big aspects of working in the future is artificial intelligence. And there's a tool here, an add-in, and I'm going to go back to Word for just a minute. Oops, wrong one, right here. And I'm going to bring this document up, called GPT for Excel and Word. And it's a way to add a tool in that will allow you to add AI to Word. Now, I went in and I took a look at this, and I had done a trial of it, and the trial expired. So now you're in a position where you have to buy this. Now, I don't understand anything about the tokens or how they work, but the point is this. AI has become a thing. And one of the tools that I've used is ChatGPT. And it's something that's been in the news, something that's rather popular these days. And I think if it were me, I would not invest in this kind of item. I personally would invest or go spend some time using the free ChatGPT tool. So, for example, you can use it to create ideas. You can use it for writing. There's all kinds of ways you can use it. Also, what I'll often do is when I'm working, if I write something, I'll take whatever I wrote that I'm either comfortable with or uncomfortable with, like I'm not confident it's what I actually want, and I will put it in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to rewrite it 3 times. So I get 3 variations. And it's amazing when I do that, how it can really change the look and the theme of what is on or in my writing. So I use some of these tools to make me better with writing and some of the things that I'm doing, and also for brainstorming. So I think that's actually a discussion for another day. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, but I want to show you one other thing. I've got a list of things I want to go through. I'm going to go back to one of the other documents for just a moment, something that has stuff in it. Let me take this one. Let's say I want to print this. Well, if I go up and click on File, and I go down to Print, when I'm printing something, I have some options. Now, I have a printer in my office, but sometimes I don't want to print it in the office. Now, what I didn't know until I just looked at this is it's actually 12 separate pages for all the months. I didn't realize that when I was looking at it. But having said that, I might not want to print this out. Instead, what I might want to do is only print this as a PDF. So somewhere on your computer, you most likely have a way to print this as a PDF. So now instead of physically printing it out, it will create a PDF document out of it. And that's something that if you think, hey, you know what, I might share this PDF document with others in my office, by all means, go ahead and do that. So now, instead of printing it out for everyone, just give them the PDF and let them decide. So because I've chosen PDF, if I click print, now what it's going to do is save this as a PDF, and it will give me an option of what I want to call it and save it as a PDF. So I'm not going to go through those steps, but I wanted to illustrate that to you. Okay, my friends, I have hit just about everything that I wanted to talk about. And if anyone has questions, don't hesitate to reach back to me. I'd be more than happy to try to help you out. Okay, be well. Thank you for being here today.